There's a message you've been sensing, one that's been following you through quiet moments, through restless nights, through those strange pauses when the world goes silent and you can feel a voice whispering from beyond the edges of your current life. And whether you know it or not, that voice is coming from your future self, not the fantasy version of you sometimes imagine when you're daydreaming about 5 years from now, not the flawless, picture-perfect image of success you've been taught to chase. No, this is the real future self, the one who already exists within you, the one who has been leaving breadcrumbs across your path, nudging you toward the life you were meant to live long before you knew how to describe it. And here's the truth. If you ignore this message, if you brush it off as just another piece of content, if you scroll past thinking you'll get to it later, you might spend years circling the same patterns, years asking yourself why nothing changes, why the same frustrations repeat, why life feels like a suit that doesn't quite fit, and your future self will keep reaching, keep calling, keep whispering until you finally stop and listen. See, most of us misunderstand what the future self really is. We think of them as a distant possibility, someone we'll only meet after countless struggles, after enough time passes, after we've checked enough boxes. But your future self isn't far away. They're not hidden behind decades. They're here, right now, living in potential, existing in the choices you're about to make. They're the part of you that already knows what needs to shift. They're the part of you that shows up as that restless dissatisfaction when life feels too small. They're the tug you feel in your chest when you sense you're capable of more. And if you're listening to these words in this moment, it isn't by accident. Something deeper than curiosity pulled you here, because your future self knows you're closer than you think. They know that the distance between who you are now and who you're meant to become is smaller than your fear wants you to believe. But they also know that in that small space, the gap between today's choices and tomorrow's reality is where most people lose themselves. Why? Because we've been trained to wait, to postpone, to tell ourselves we'll begin later. We wait until the timing feels perfect. We wait until we have more money. We wait until the fear quiets down. We wait until someone else validates what we already know inside. But your future self is here to tell you the waiting is the trap. Waiting is the very pattern that keeps you stuck, living the same year over and over, mistaking comfort for progress. And the longer you wait, the heavier it becomes. Each day you ignore that inner whisper. The noise around you gets louder. Each time you push away the urge to grow, your excuses multiply. Each time you tell yourself, not yet, the path becomes harder to see. Not because the opportunity disappears, but because your conditioning wraps tighter around you. Your future self is not simply happier or more successful. They are freer. Free from the stories you've been reciting to yourself about why things can't change. Free from the fear that convinces you to stay small. Free from the illusion that you need to have every detail mapped out before you take a single step. And that's why they're reaching for you now. Because they remember the exact moment when they stopped waiting. When they chose courage over comfort. When they finally understood that freedom was not earned through years of suffering, but chosen in a single moment of truth. And here's where people get it wrong. They think growth comes from adding more strategies, more tools, more techniques, more information. They chase endless checklists and courses, hoping one more method will unlock the breakthrough. But your future self knows the opposite is true. Transformation is subtraction. It's removing the conditioning that keeps you trapped in someone else's script. It's shedding the expectations you never consciously agreed to. It's letting go of the constant need to perform, to please, to be who you think you should be instead of who you really are. There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize they've been living by rules they never wrote. Rules about what success should look like. Rules about how love should feel. Rules about what makes a life good. And in that moment, you have two choices. Keep obeying the rules that cage you, or break them and step into the life that was always waiting. Your future self remembers the exact moment they chose freedom, and they want you to know that moment doesn't have to be 5 years away. It can be right now. And yes, your mind resists. It can't be that simple, it argues. If it were this easy, wouldn't everyone already be living their dream? But that's the paradox. It is simple, but it isn't easy. The reason most people don't change isn't because they can't. It's because they keep waiting for permission. Permission that will never come. They wait for certainty in an uncertain world. They wait for applause before daring to speak. They wait for validation from people who are just as lost. And all the while, the future self waits patiently, knowing the only permission you ever needed was your own. But let's not sugarcoat this. Change is uncomfortable. Growth asks you to become unfamiliar with yourself, to step into a version of you that doesn't yet have all the answers, to walk forward without knowing exactly how the road will unfold. And most people would rather stay comfortably miserable than risk being uncomfortably free. Your future self knows this resistance well. They felt it too. They remember the nights when fear whispered, maybe next year, maybe when you're more prepared, maybe when it's safer. They remember every excuse, every delay, every bargain with themselves. And they also remember the moment when the discomfort of staying the same grew heavier than the discomfort of change. That's when everything shifted. The truth about timing is this: there will never be a perfect moment. The stars will never align the way you want them to. Life will always have uncertainties, but there are moments, sacred moments, when your soul's voice cuts through the noise. Moments when your inner knowing is louder than your fear. And this is one of those moments. Not because I say it is, but because something deep within you recognizes it. That stirring in your chest right now, that quiet electricity in your bones, that's recognition. Your future self has been speaking through your dissatisfaction, through every restless night when you felt there had to be more, through every dream that seemed too bold to confess, through every what if that haunted you in silence. Those weren't random thoughts. They weren't idle fantasies. They were glimpses, fragments of memory bleeding through from the version of you that already exists in potential. And here's the part most people miss. Your future self isn't passively waiting. They're guiding you. They're leaving clues. They're orchestrating synchronicities, that chance encounter, that repeated sign, that unshakable feeling you're meant for more. These aren't coincidences. They're invitations. The question isn't whether you're capable of becoming them. You are. The question is whether you'll trust the voice that already knows the way. Whether you'll stop outsourcing your life to circumstances and start reclaiming your power. Because your future self doesn't live in a reality without challenges. They live in a reality where challenges are not punishments, but invitations. Where obstacles are not proof of failure, but gateways to strength. Where uncertainty isn't a threat, but a canvas for possibility. They want you to know something important. Every mistake you've made, every disappointment, every heartbreak, it wasn't wasted. It was preparation. It was shaping the resilience, compassion, and wisdom you need for the life ahead. Your future self doesn't judge you for the choices you've made. They honor you for surviving, for learning, for getting this far. But they also know you're ready for more, even if you don't feel ready yet. And here's the secret they whisper. You don't become who you're meant to be by figuring it all out in advance. You become them by deciding you already are that person, and then living as if it were true. Transformation isn't achieved through endless effort. It's recognized through alignment. The gap is not as wide as you think. You don't need to leap it in one dramatic moment. You just need to take small steps in the direction of truth. Your future self knows that change happens in micro moments of courage. The second you choose honesty over approval. The moment you let intuition guide you instead of fear. The breath where you speak your truth, even if your voice shakes. These moments may seem small, but your future self sees the compound effect. Each choice stacks upon the last, until suddenly your entire reality has shifted. But they also want you to understand this. Resistance is not your enemy. That tightening in your chest, that inner voice saying, "Don't risk it, stay safe," that isn't your intuition. That's conditioning. That's your old programming trying to keep you in the patterns it knows. Fear speaks loudly, urgently, in absolutes. You can't. You'll fail. It's too much. Wisdom, on the other hand, speaks softly. It nudges. It whispers. It doesn't argue. It just knows. And learning the difference changes everything. The life you're living now is built on the choices of a past version of you, operating from a past level of awareness. But awareness is not fixed. It expands. It evolves. As your consciousness grows, so does your life. Not through force, but through alignment. And that's what your future self embodies. They are not free of challenges. They are free within challenges. They are not without setbacks. They've simply learned to use setbacks as stepping stones. They are not fearless. They've just stopped letting fear dictate their choices. And here's something that might surprise you most. Your future self doesn't care if you make mistakes. They know every choice, even the messy ones, contributes to your unfolding. There are no wrong paths, only different roads leading you home to yourself. The waiting is over, not because I declare it so, but because something inside you has ripened. Your moment of readiness is here. That's why you're listening now. Your future self has been patient, but they're also persistent. They'll keep calling, keep arranging signs, keep whispering until you listen. And this moment, this stirring in you, is their gift. The reminder that you already have what you need to begin. Not to finish the journey all at once, but to take the next step, and then the next. Until one day, you look around and realize you've become the person you once only dreamed of being. The gap is gone. The future self you once imagined is now simply you. And then you'll see it clearly. The freedom, the peace, the confidence, the love. They were never out there waiting for you. They were always within you, waiting for recognition. So here's the invitation. Not to wait another day, not to shrink back into old patterns, not to let fear be louder than truth, but to step forward, to listen, to trust, to say yes to the life that's been calling your name all along. Because the question is not, what happens if you do? The real question is, what happens if you don't? How many more days will you spend living someone else's rules? How many more nights will you lie awake, knowing there's more but pretending you can't feel it? Your future self is here now, reaching through this moment, offering a hand. All you have to do is take it. All you have to do is say yes. All you have to do is trust that the path will reveal itself one step at a time. The message is clear. The time is now. Your future self believes in you completely. The only question left is, will you believe in yourself the same way?